The restaurant went silent. 47 people frozen mid-bite, mid-conversation, mid-breath. Crystal glasses suspended in the air. Because at table 7, something impossible was happening. Kang Min-jae, the Ghost King himself, the Korean Mafia boss whose dragon tattoos crawled up his neck like warnings, whose name made hardened criminals cross the street. He was holding the wrist of a black waitress. Gently, like she was something precious. His eyes locked on the purple fingerprints bruising her beautiful dark skin. And when he spoke, his voice was soft as death itself. Who touched her? 3 words that made the entire room stop breathing. The woman, Amara, tried to pull away, whispering it was nothing, just an accident, please don't make a scene. But he saw what everyone else pretended not to see. The carefully applied makeup, the long sleeves in summer, the practiced smile that never reached her eyes. The same signs his sister had shown before she died in a hospital bed, apologizing for being alive. And standing there, pale and sweating, was Derek. The manager, the boyfriend, the man whose hands had left those marks. He didn't know it yet, but his world was about to end. Because the Ghost King keeps promises to dead sisters. And this black woman he'd been watching for 3 months, protecting from the shadows, leaving $200 tips she hid in a coffee can. She was about to learn that sometimes monsters protect the innocent from other monsters. What happened next in that frozen restaurant would change everything. The choice Derek made, the secrets Min-jae revealed, the freedom Amara didn't know she could have. But first, before we dive into this story of power, protection, and the price of silence, before we start the story, comment here where you're watching from and what time it is there. If stories of karma, love, and hidden truths move you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. The restaurant hummed with the kind of quiet wealth that doesn't need to announce itself. Crystal glasses caught the amber light from paper lanterns. Chopsticks clicked against porcelain in measured rhythm. Conversations floated in 3 languages, none louder than a whisper. This was the kind of place where power dined on Tuesday evenings, where deals worth millions happened over plates of galbi and bottles of soju that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Amara Johnson moved through this world like a ghost trying to become invisible, her black uniform pressed crisp, her smile practiced to perfection, her movements economical and precise. She had learned, over 8 months of working here, exactly how to exist without drawing attention, how to refill a water glass without interrupting conversation, how to remember complicated orders without writing them down, how to make wealthy men feel served without feeling threatened by her presence. What none of them knew, what she hid beneath foundation 2 shades too light for her beautiful dark skin, was that she was also learning how to survive. The bruise on her left arm throbbed as she lifted a tray of appetizers. She had covered it carefully that morning, pulling her sleeves down, checking the mirror 3 times. Derek had been angry last night. Something about the bills, something about her tone when she asked about money for her veterinary classes. The details blurred together now, the way they always did. What remained was the ache, the purple-blue fingerprints pressed into her flesh like signatures of ownership. She delivered the appetizers to table 12 with that smile, that perfect smile, and moved toward table 7. Table 7 had become a ritual she both anticipated and feared. Kang Min-jae sat alone, as he always did on Tuesdays. His suit probably cost more than her car, what was left of it. The dragon tattoo crawled up his neck from beneath his collar, dark ink against pale skin, beautiful and menacing in equal measure. His guards sat at separate tables, 2 men who looked like they could break furniture with their thoughts. Everyone in the restaurant knew who he was. Everyone pretended they didn't. Amara had served him for 3 months now. Every Tuesday, same table, same time. He always ordered bibimbap, always asked if she was well, always left a $200 tip that she hid from Derek in a coffee can beneath the bathroom sink. She had $1,400 saved now. Not enough to leave. Not nearly enough. "Good evening, Mr. Kang," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "The usual tonight?" He looked up from his phone, and for just a moment his eyes softened. It was the strangest thing about him. This man whose reputation preceded him like a storm warning. When he looked at her, really looked at her, she saw something that didn't match the dragon on his neck or the rumors that followed his name through the city's underworld. "Yes, thank you," he said. His English carried the faintest accent, Korean syllables softening the edges of his words. "And you? You are well tonight?" It was always the same question. She always gave the same answer. "I'm fine, thank you for asking." But tonight, as she reached for his empty water glass, her sleeve rode up. Just an inch. Just enough. She saw his eyes track the movement. Saw them land on the bruise. Saw something behind his careful expression crack open like ice breaking on a frozen lake. The temperature in the room dropped. Min-jae's hand moved faster than she expected, gentle but firm, catching her wrist before she could pull away. Not grabbing, not hurting, just stopping her. His fingers were warm against her skin, and she realized she was shaking. "What is this?" His voice hadn't changed volume, but the quality of it shifted. Every conversation in the restaurant seemed to pause, as if the air itself was holding its breath. "I tripped," Amara said quickly, the lie practiced and smooth. "Yesterday, in the stockroom. Clumsy of me." Min-jae's thumb traced the edge of the bruise, so lightly she barely felt it. But his eyes were reading the shape of it like a language she didn't know he could speak. "These are fingerprints," he said. Not a question. A statement of fact delivered with the weight of absolute certainty. Amara's heart hammered against her ribs. Around them, the restaurant had gone completely silent. 47 people frozen in place, their meals forgotten, their conversations dead in their throats. Even the kitchen sounds had stopped, as if the entire building was waiting for whatever came next. "Please," she whispered. "It's nothing. I'm fine." But Min-jae wasn't looking at her anymore. He was looking past her, toward the kitchen door, where Derek had just emerged with his manager's smile and his manager's clipboard and his manager's authority that he wielded like a weapon against her every single night. "Mr. Kang," Derek said, his voice cheerful and professional and completely wrong for this moment. "Is there a problem with the service?" Min-jae still held Amara's wrist. Gently, like she was something precious that might break if he let go. "Who touched her?" he asked. 3 words, soft as a prayer, deadly as a verdict. The restaurant didn't just go quiet. It disappeared. Amara felt like she was watching this happen to someone else, some other woman whose life was about to change in ways she couldn't predict or control. She wanted to pull away, wanted to run, wanted to take it all back, cover the bruise, keep the secret, maintain the fragile stability of her nightmare, because at least it was familiar. But Min-jae's eyes had found Derek now, and Derek's smile was cracking at the edges. "I don't know what you mean," Derek said, but his hand twitched toward his pocket, a nervous tell that Amara recognized from all their arguments. Min-jae finally released her wrist and stood. He wasn't particularly tall, but he seemed to fill the space anyway, seemed to make the ceiling lower and the walls closer. The dragon on his neck moved as he turned his head, as if the ink itself was waking up. "You live with her," Min-jae said. Again, not a question. Derek's face shifted through several expressions before landing on indignant. "That's personal business, Mr. Kang. I don't think—" "Did you put your hands on her?" The question hung in the air like smoke from a gun that hadn't been fired yet. Amara felt the tears coming before she could stop them. Not because of the fear, though that was there too, but because someone had asked. Someone had seen. Someone had looked at her bruise and known, immediately and without doubt, what it meant. For 8 months, she had been invisible. For 8 months, she had smiled and served and survived and told herself it would get better, that Derek would change, that she could fix this if she just tried harder, spoke softer, loved better. And in 3 words, who touched her, all of those lies crumbled. "Please don't," she heard herself say, though she wasn't sure what she was asking for. "Don't hurt him? Don't expose me? Don't save me, because I don't know what comes after being saved." Minjae's guards had risen from their tables. Derek took a step backward, then caught himself, puffed up his chest, tried to reclaim his authority. "I'm calling the police," Derek announced, and Minjae laughed. It was the most terrifying sound Amara had ever heard, because it held no humor at all, just knowledge, just certainty, just the absolute understanding of someone who knew exactly how the world worked and where every piece belonged on the board. "Call them," Minjae said quietly. "Ask for Detective Park. Tell him the Ghost King sends his regards." Derek's face went pale as winter. Amara watched the color drain from Derek's face and felt something shift inside her chest, something that had been locked down tight for so long she'd forgotten it was there. It felt dangerous. It felt like hope. Derek's hand, the same hand that had left those fingerprints on her arm, trembled as he lowered his phone. He knew that name. Everyone in this city who existed in the spaces between legal and illegal knew that name. The Ghost King. Kang Min-jae. The man who owned half the underground and asked permission from no one. "Mr. Kang." Derek tried again, his manager voice cracking at the edges. "I think there's been a misunderstanding. Amara is my girlfriend. We live together. Sometimes couples have disagreements, Min-jae repeated, and the words sounded obscene in his mouth. He turned to look at Amara, really look at her, and she felt naked under that gaze. Not violated. Seen. "Is that what you call this? A disagreement?" She opened her mouth to say yes, to protect Derek the way she always protected Derek, to smooth this over and make it go away so her life could return to its horrible, familiar shape. But the word wouldn't come. It stuck in her throat like a stone. Because she was remembering 3 months ago, the first time Min-jae had walked into this restaurant. She had been working a double shift, exhausted, moving on autopilot. Derek had screamed at her that morning about forgetting to buy his specific brand of coffee. She'd had a split lip she'd covered with lipstick that kept bleeding through. Min-jae had sat down at table 7 and ordered in Korean, testing her. She didn't speak Korean, but she'd smiled anyway and made a joke about needing a translation app. And something in his expression had softened, just for a moment. He'd switched to English and ordered bibimbap, extra gochujang, and when she'd brought it to him, he'd asked a question no customer had ever asked before. "Are you well?" Not, "How are you?" Not the automatic greeting people throw away without expecting an answer. "Are you well?" Like he actually wanted to know. Like the answer mattered. She'd said yes, of course, because that's what you say. But his eyes had lingered on her face just a second too long, on the place where her split lip was hidden beneath makeup, and she'd known that he knew. He'd come back every Tuesday since then. Same table, same question. $200 every time, left in cash so Derek couldn't track it on her credit card statements. She told herself it was just good service, just a generous customer. But standing here now, watching him face down Derek with the casual certainty of a man who'd ended lives with less provocation. She understood what it actually was. He'd been waiting. Watching. Building evidence in his mind until the moment he could act. "Tell me," Min-jae said to Derek, his voice so soft the entire restaurant leaned forward to hear it. "How long have you been putting your hands on her?" Derek's jaw clenched. "This is insane. You can't just—" "8 months," Amara heard herself say. The words came out of nowhere, from some deep place inside her that had been screaming into a pillow for too long. 8 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days. The silence that followed was so complete she could hear her own heartbeat. Could hear Derek's sharp intake of breath. Could hear one of Min-jae's guards crack his knuckles with anticipation. "Amara," Derek said, and his voice had that edge to it now. That warning tone she knew meant pain later. "You're being dramatic. You know how you get when you're tired. Let's talk about this at home, okay?" "Mr. Kang, I apologize for this disruption." "You're not going home," Min-jae said. He still hadn't raised his voice. Still hadn't moved from his position between Amara and Derek. "Neither of you. Not together. Not ever again." Derek laughed, but it was hollow, desperate. "You can't tell us what to do. This is America, not your—" "The apartment," Min-jae interrupted, pulling out his phone with one hand while the other gestured to one of his guards. "It's in your name, yes? On 7th Street, 3rd floor, corner unit with the broken dishwasher she keeps asking you to fix." Amara felt her blood turn to ice. How did he know that? How could he possibly know that? Derek's eyes went wide. "Have you been following us? That's stalking. That's illegal." "My building," Min-jae said simply. "The one next door. Very good security cameras. Excellent view of your parking lot. Strange the things those cameras see. Strange the things they record." He tapped his phone screen a few times, then turned it around. Amara couldn't see it from her angle, but she saw Derek's face go from pale to gray to something approaching green. Saw his hands start to shake for real now, not with anger, but with fear. "That's from last Tuesday," Min-jae continued, his tone conversational, like he was discussing the weather. "When you pushed her against her car and hit her. And this one from Friday, in the stairwell. And this one from yesterday morning, in your kitchen through the window you forgot to close." He lowered the phone. "I have 16 videos, Mr. Chen. All from public cameras on my property. All perfectly legal to record. All showing very clearly what kind of man you are." Derek was breathing hard now, cornered. And Amara knew from experience that Derek was most dangerous when he was cornered. She saw his hand move toward his pocket again, saw the shift in his posture that meant violence was coming, and she opened her mouth to warn everyone. But Min-jae's guard was already there, hand clamped on Derek's wrist, immobilizing it with professional efficiency. "I wouldn't," the guard said in accented English. "Boss doesn't like when people reach for weapons in nice restaurants. Bad for business." Derek's pocket knife clattered to the floor, the same knife he'd used to cut the cord on her laptop charger last month when she'd tried to study for her veterinary exams instead of watching television with him. The same knife he'd held up to show her what would happen if she ever thought about leaving. The restaurant collectively exhaled. Someone dropped a fork. The sound was deafening in the silence. Min-jae picked up the knife, examined it with the detached interest of a man who'd seen far more dangerous weapons, then pocketed it. "You came to my restaurant, you ate my food, you accepted my hospitality while hiding the fact that you beat the woman who serves me. That's disrespectful, Mr. Chen. I don't like being disrespected." "What do you want?" Derek asked, and his voice had lost all its authority now. He sounded small, scared. The way Amara sounded every night when she apologized for things that weren't her fault. Min-jae smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I want you to make a choice. 2 options. Very simple. First option. My men take you for a drive to the harbor. We have a conversation there. Private. Long. Thorough. You understand? Derek nodded, sweat beading on his forehead. Second option. You sign papers. Right now. Tonight. Transfer the apartment to her name. Transfer the car title to her name. Close your shared bank account and give her half. Then you leave this city by sunrise tomorrow and never come back. Never call her, never text her, never speak her name again. You disappear completely, and in exchange, these videos stay private. The police never see them. My lawyers never file charges. You get to start over somewhere far away from here. That's insane, Derek protested weakly. That's extortion. That's justice, Min-jae corrected. Real justice. The kind the police won't give her because men like you know exactly how to work the system. How to make her look crazy. How to make it her word against yours. How to keep her trapped because she has no money, no place to go, no way out. I'm giving her a way out. And I'm giving you a choice to walk away with your life. That's more generous than you deserve. Amara felt tears streaming down her face now, hot and unstoppable. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen. People like her didn't get rescued by men like him. This was a dream, or a trap, or something that would cost her more than she could afford. Why? She whispered. Why are you doing this? Min-jae turned to her, and for the first time since this started, his expression softened completely. The Ghost King disappeared, and what remained was just a man carrying old pain. I had a sister, he said quietly. The words hung in the air between them like a confession. I had a sister. Past tense. The weight of those 3 syllables told Amara everything she needed to know about why Kang Min-jae came to this restaurant every Tuesday. Why he asked if she was well. Why he'd been watching and waiting and collecting evidence like a man building a case against God himself. Her name was Sujin, Min-jae continued, and his voice had changed. The hard edges had softened into something rawer, more human. She was 23 years old, beautiful, smart. She wanted to be a teacher. She had this boyfriend, this perfect boyfriend. Good job, nice family, everyone loved him. Even me, especially me. He paused, his jaw working like the words cost him something to speak aloud. She wore long sleeves in summer. Said she bruised easily. Got clumsy, she told us. Started canceling family dinners. Stopped calling our mother. I thought she was just busy. Just in love, just living her life. I was young then. Stupid. Building my territory, making my name, thinking I was so powerful because I could make men afraid of me. Amara watched a muscle tick in his jaw. Around them, the restaurant remained frozen, every person an unwilling witness to this moment of raw truth. I didn't see it, Min-jae said, and his hands curled into fists at his sides. My own sister, and I didn't see it. Not until the hospital called. Not until I walked into that room and saw her face so swollen I barely recognized her. Not until the doctors told me about the old fractures, the healed burns, the pattern of injuries that told a story I'd been too blind to read. Derek shifted uncomfortably, but the guard's hand tightened on his shoulder, keeping him in place. She lived for 3 days, Min-jae continued. 3 days she stayed in that hospital bed. And you know what she did? She apologized. To me. To our mother. She said she was sorry for causing trouble. Sorry for being weak. Sorry for not being a better girlfriend. Even dying, she protected him. Even after everything he'd done, she tried to make excuses for why she'd made him angry. Amara felt the words like physical blows. She knew that apology. She'd said it 1,000 times. Sorry for burning dinner. Sorry for being too tired. Sorry for existing wrong. The boyfriend disappeared before the police could question him, Min-jae said. His family had money, had lawyers, had connections. They made it go away. Made my sister's death look like an accident, a fall downstairs, a tragedy that could have happened to anyone. And I, with all my power, with all my territory, with all the fear my name commanded in the streets, I couldn't touch him. Because he existed in a different world, a legal world, a world where money and lawyers trumped justice every single time. He looked at Derek now, and the expression on his face made even the hardened criminal seem gentle by comparison. So I made a promise. Standing over my sister's grave, I promised that I would never look away again. Never miss the signs again. Never let another woman die while people like me pretended not to see. And when I walked into this restaurant 3 months ago and saw you, he turned back to Amara. I saw my sister. The long sleeves, the careful makeup, the way you flinched when someone moved too quickly, the practiced smile that never reached your eyes. I saw her, and I swore I would not fail again. Amara couldn't breathe. The restaurant had become too small, the air too thick. She felt like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, looking down at a life she'd never imagined possible, terrified of the fall. So that's why, Min-jae finished. That's why I come here every Tuesday. That's why I ask if you're well. That's why I leave money I know you're hiding from him. That's why I've been waiting for the right moment to give you a choice your sister never got. A choice to walk away. A choice to live. The silence that followed was broken by Derek's bitter laugh. This is insane. You're a criminal, a gangster. You kill people. You think you're some kind of hero? You're worse than me. At least I don't pretend to be something I'm not. Min-jae turned to face him fully, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop another 10 degrees. You're right, he said simply. I am a criminal. I've done terrible things. I'll do terrible things again. I don't pretend to be good. But there's a difference between us, Mr. Chen. I hurt people who chose this life. People who knew the risks when they stepped into my world. People who can fight back. You? You hurt someone who loved you. Someone who trusted you. Someone who had no power, no weapon, no way to defend herself except to shrink smaller and smaller until she disappeared. You're not a man. You're a coward who found the one person in the world who couldn't hurt you back, and you broke her for sport. Derek's face flushed red. I never meant to hurt her. She doesn't listen. She doesn't understand when I'm trying to help her. She makes me so... Stop, Amara said. It was the first time she'd interrupted Derek in 8 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days. The first time she'd used her voice as a weapon instead of a surrender. Derek's mouth snapped shut, shock written across his features. Stop, Amara repeated, louder this time. Stop making excuses. Stop making this my fault. Stop acting like you're the victim here. You hit me, Derek. You pushed me. You broke my ribs last month and told me I deserved it for questioning where you'd been. You destroyed my laptop. You isolated me from my friends. You made me quit school. You took everything from me, piece by piece, until I forgot what it felt like to be whole. Her voice was shaking, but she was standing straighter now, her shoulders back, her eyes clear. And the worst part? The absolute worst part? I believed you. I believed it was my fault. I believed I could fix it if I just loved you better, tried harder, became smaller. I believed I deserved this. She looked at Min-jae, then back at Derek. But I don't. I never did. And I'm done. The words felt like breaking chains, like breathing air for the first time after being underwater too long, like waking from a nightmare to discover the monster had only ever been real in the dark. Min-jae nodded slowly, something like pride flickering across his face. Then he turned back to Derek. "You have 1 minute to decide," he said. "Harbor or papers? Choose." Derek looked around the restaurant wildly, searching for allies, for exits, for any way out that didn't involve losing everything. But there was nothing. 47 witnesses who wouldn't help him. 2 guards who looked eager for him to choose wrong. And Amara, standing there with tears on her face and steel in her spine. No longer the woman he could intimidate into silence. "Papers," Derek whispered finally. "I'll sign the papers." Min-jae pulled out his phone and made a call, spoke rapid Korean into it, hung up. "My lawyer will be here in 15 minutes, he said. "You'll sign everything, transfer everything. And then my men will escort you to your apartment, watch you pack 1 bag, and drive you to the bus station. You'll have enough money for a ticket anywhere you want to go, as long as it's more than 500 miles from here. After that, you're on your own." "And if I come back?" Derek asked, some last spark of defiance flickering. Min-jae smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Amara had ever seen. "Then we have that conversation at the harbor after all. And, Mr. Chen? I'm a patient man, but I'm also a thorough one. If you ever contact her again, if you ever even think about her again, I will know. And what happens next won't be a choice. It will be an ending. Do you understand?" Derek nodded, defeated, broken, small. The lawyer arrived exactly 15 minutes later, carrying a briefcase and an expression that suggested he'd done this before. The papers were signed at a table in the back, witnessed by Min-jae's guards and the restaurant's manager, who'd emerged from the kitchen looking pale but determined. Amara watched Derek's hands shake as he signed away the apartment, the car, half the bank account that was mostly her money anyway. Watched him become smaller with each signature. Watched the power drain from him like water from a broken vessel. When it was done, the guards escorted him out. He didn't look at her as he left, didn't say goodbye. Just walked out of the restaurant and out of her life, leaving behind only the fading bruise on her arm and 8 months of nightmares that would take years to fade. And then there were 2, Amara and Min-jae, standing in a restaurant full of people who were pretending very hard not to have witnessed what they'd just witnessed. The restaurant slowly came back to life around them, conversations resuming in hushed tones, silverware clinking against plates with unusual delicacy, as if everyone feared that speaking too loudly might shatter whatever fragile spell had just been broken. Amara stood frozen in the center of it all, clutching the folder of documents that proved she owned an apartment now, owned a car now, owned her own life now. She couldn't feel her hands, couldn't process what had just happened. 8 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days of survival, of endurance, of shrinking herself down to nothing, and it had ended in 15 minutes of signatures and threats and a man with dragon tattoos who kept his promises to dead sisters. Min-jae dismissed his guards with a subtle gesture, and they melted back to their tables as if nothing had happened, as if they hadn't just escorted an abuser out of a woman's life with the efficiency of men who'd done worse things for lesser reasons. "Sit," Min-jae said gently, pulling out a chair at table 7. "Please, you're shaking." Amara looked down and realized he was right. Her whole body was trembling, adrenaline and shock and relief and terror all coursing through her veins at once. She sat because her legs wouldn't hold her anymore, because the weight of freedom felt heavier than the weight of captivity had. Min-jae sat across from her, his usual seat, the table between them a familiar barrier. He poured water from the carafe into a clean glass and slid it toward her. "Drink," he said, slowly. She obeyed, the cool water grounding her, bringing her back into her body. Around them, the restaurant staff had begun moving again. The kitchen sounds resumed. The world continued turning despite the fact that hers had just completely inverted. "I don't understand," Amara finally said, her voice hoarse. "You don't know me. Not really. We've never even had a real conversation. Why would you do all this for someone you don't know?" Min-jae was quiet for a long moment, his fingers tracing patterns on the tablecloth, his eyes distant. "When Sujin died," he said finally, "I became obsessed with understanding why. Why she stayed. Why she protected him. Why she chose him over us, over herself, over life itself. I read everything. Psychology books, survivor testimonies, police reports from hundreds of cases just like hers. I wanted to understand the mechanism of it, the trap of it, how love becomes prison, becomes grave." He looked up at her, and his eyes were ancient with grief. "And what I learned is that it's not about love at all. It's about erosion. About how abusers take a person and chip away at them piece by piece until they forget they were ever whole, until they believe the lies, until they think they deserve the pain, until they lose the language to even name what's happening to them as wrong." Amara felt tears sliding down her face again, silent and unstoppable. "I learned that victims don't need to be saved," Min-jae continued. "They need to be given back their power, their choice, their voice. So that's what I've been doing these past 7 years since Sujin died. I watch. I wait. I collect evidence. And when the moment is right, when the woman is ready, even if she doesn't know it yet, I offer a choice. Not rescue, not salvation, just options that didn't exist before." "How many?" Amara asked. "How many women?" "You're the 9th, Min-jae said simply. 9 women in 7 years. Some worked in my businesses, some lived in my buildings, some I met by accident, like you. All of them had bruises they tried to hide. All of them had excuses ready. All of them thought they deserved it." He leaned forward slightly. "And all of them are alive now. Free now. Living in apartments I made sure they could keep. Working jobs I made sure they wouldn't lose. Building lives that belonged to them and them alone. That's my promise to Sujin. That's my penance for failing her. 9 lives saved doesn't equal 1 life lost. But it's something. It's better than doing nothing." Amara pressed her hand against her mouth, overwhelmed. This man, this criminal, this ghost king who terrified the city's underworld, had built an entire shadow network of protection for women like her. Had weaponized his power not for profit, but for redemption. Not for control, but for liberation. "What happens now?" she whispered. "Derek signed the papers. But what if he comes back? What if he doesn't stay away? What if—" "He won't," Min-jae said with absolute certainty. "Men like Derek are cowards at their core. They need victims who can't fight back. The moment you fight back, the moment someone more powerful than them gets involved, they fold. They find new victims, easier victims, or they slink away and tell themselves stories about how they were wronged. But they don't come back. Not when they know I'm watching. Not when they know the consequences." He pulled out a business card from his jacket pocket, slid it across the table. It was simple, elegant. Just a phone number embossed in silver ink. "This number," he said, "reaches my lawyer. 24 hours a day. If Derek violates the no-contact agreement, you call. If you need help with anything legal, financial, practical, you call. If you just want to make sure someone is still watching, you call. This protection doesn't expire. It's not conditional on anything. It just is." Amara picked up the card with shaking fingers. "I can't afford a lawyer like yours." "You're not paying," Min-jae said. "I am. Consider it part of the package." "Why?" The question burst out of her, desperate, confused. "Why do all this? Why spend your money, your time, your resources on strangers? You're a criminal. You could be using this power for anything. Why this?" Min-jae's smile was sad, ancient, carved from old grief. "Because Sujin died thinking she was worthless," he said quietly. "She died believing she deserved what he did to her. She died apologizing for being alive. And I can't bring her back. I can't undo her death. But I can make sure other sisters don't die the same way. I can make sure other women know they're worth saving, worth fighting for, worth more than the men who tried to break them." He stood, straightening his suit jacket, the dragon on his neck shifting with the movement. "You have an apartment now. It's yours, free and clear. The utilities are already in your name as of tonight. My lawyer made sure of it. The car is registered to you. The bank account has your money plus a little extra to help you get started. Your job here is secure if you want it. But if you want to go back to school, finish your veterinary degree, my lawyer can help with that too. Scholarships, loans, whatever you need." Amara stood too, her legs steadier now. "I don't know how to thank you." "Don't thank me," Min-jae said. "Just live. Live loudly. Live fully. Live like you're worth all the space you take up in the world, because you are. That's all the thanks I need." He turned to leave, his guards rising from their tables to follow, but Amara's voice stopped him. "Mr. Kang?" He looked back. "Tuesday nights," she said. "Table 7. Will you still come?" Something softened in his expression, something that looked almost like hope. "Would you like me to?" Amara thought about it, thought about what it meant to let this man into her life, even in this small way. This criminal, this killer, this ghost king who'd just given her everything and asked for nothing in return. Who'd seen her when she was invisible. Who'd waited until she was ready. Who'd offered her power instead of pity. "Yes," she said. "I'd like that. Someone should make sure you're eating properly. That bibimbap order of yours needs more vegetables." Min-jae's laugh was quiet, genuine, surprised. "Then I'll be here. Every Tuesday. Same time, same table." "Same question?" Amara asked. "Same question," he confirmed. "Are you well?" And for the first time in 8 months, 2 weeks, and 3 days, Amara answered honestly. "Not yet," she said. "But I will be." Min-jae nodded, understanding in his eyes. "That's enough. That's everything." He left then, his guards following like shadows, the restaurant exhaling collectively as the Ghost King disappeared into the night. Amara stood alone at table 7, clutching a folder of documents that proved she existed, that proved she mattered, that proved she was worth saving. The other servers approached cautiously, their faces full of questions they were too afraid to ask. The manager emerged from the kitchen, looking shaken but resolute. "Take the rest of the night off," he told Amara gently. "Paid. Take tomorrow too if you need it. Your job is here when you're ready." Amara nodded, gathered her things from her locker, walked out into the cool night air of a city that suddenly felt different, bigger, fuller of possibility. She had keys to an apartment that was hers, papers that proved her freedom, a phone number that connected her to protection she'd never imagined possible. She got into her car, the car that was legally hers now, and sat in the driver's seat for a long moment. Touched the bruise on her arm one last time, felt the ache of it, the evidence of what she'd survived. Then she started the engine and drove toward her apartment. Her real apartment. The one Derek could never enter again. She drove past streetlights and storefronts and other people living their lives, and she felt something she hadn't felt in so long, she'd almost forgotten what to call it. She felt free. Behind her, in a black car 3 lengths back, one of Min Jae's guards followed at a discreet distance. Just watching. Just making sure she got home safe. Just keeping the promise their boss had made to a dead sister 7 years ago. The Ghost King kept his promises. All of them. Always. And the Mara Johnson, veterinary student, survivor, woman who owned her own life now, drove toward a future that finally belonged to her. The bruises would fade. The nightmares would lessen. The fear would transform into strength, slowly, painfully, but inevitably. She touched the business card in her pocket, felt its weight, its promise, its proof that someone was watching, someone cared. Someone had decided she was worth fighting for. And on Tuesday night, she would be back at table 7. Not as a victim, not as someone who needed saving, but as a woman who'd been given her power back, serving bibimbap to a man who understood that sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply making sure someone else survives. The city lights blurred through her tears, but for the first time in 8 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days, they were tears of relief. She was going home. Finally, truly, home. If this story moved you, stop for a moment and reflect. Have you ever been judged for who you are instead of seen for who you could become? Have you ever watched someone suffer in silence and wondered if you should intervene, or stayed quiet because it wasn't your business? Have you ever discovered that the person you feared most was the only one brave enough to stand up for you when no one else would? Tell us your experiences and feelings in the comments. We read them all. And if you believe in stories about redemption, protection, and the courage to break cycles of violence, don't forget to subscribe to the channel.